While the main objective of ARMS might be the same as other fighting titles, the strategies behind winning could not be more different. This is a game with controls unlike any other, and even though it might seem simple, you'll notice quickly after playing online that there are strategies and playstyles that other people have come up with. Just like any other competitive title, ARMS forces you to play a lot to keep up with the rest of the community, but I do have some tips here that can definitely help you practice smarter and more efficiently, most specifically in the ranked battles. Choose and know your playstyle. If you've seen my Splatoon 2 tips video before, this tip might seem a little familiar. Just like most competitive games, there's a few different playstyles that correlate with each specific character. The choices are a lot less cookie cutter in this game due to the fact that you can basically put any arm on any character, but there's still playstyles to keep in mind to help you get better with certain fighters. Most people online favor the speedy playstyle and play characters like Kid Cobra, Ribbon Girl, and Ninjara. These characters all have abilities that grant them extra speed and mobility, so it's best to use more light and quick arms with these characters. On the other end of the spectrum are characters like Master Mummy and Max Brass. Both of these guys have high defense stats as well as abilities that play into that idea. Master Mummy can heal himself while blocking, and both of the characters have the ability to ground themselves so that they can't be staggered by enemy punches. With these characters, it's best to use slower, heavy arms that might be able to break through the lighter punches of faster characters. Both of these playstyles are equally viable, but it's important to know what makes them viable in order to play them right. Study the Holy Trinity. In case you were concerned, no, this video is not about to get preachy. There is a trump system of attacks in this game, and keeping it in mind makes the difference between a novice and a master. You may have heard this system described as rock, paper, scissors before, and the analogy is pretty correct. A guard will always block a punch will always break a grab will always break a guard. All actions have a counter, which makes this game sound easy, but the Trinity can be easily forgotten during play if you're not actively thinking about it. Always keeping this concept in mind ensures that you always have the proper counter to your opponent's moves. Charge and time your attacks right. I've played ARMS locally with a few casual gamers before, and the general go-to strategy is just to mash all the buttons until your hands hurt. You can definitely do some damage this way, but when your opponent sees that you're just standing in one place with no pauses in between punches, it's really easy to predict your next move and then do some damage while your arms are still extended. Rather than swinging recklessly at your opponent trying to do as much damage as possible in a small amount of time, try staying back and reading your opponent first. I'm not saying you should never attack first, because games where both players just jump around and wait for the other to attack are not fun at all, but you should at least try to find a pattern in your opponent's moves. If your opponent's constantly jumping and dodging to the left when you swing, try sending your arms out in the place where they dodged for the past 5 times, because there's a good chance they're probably going to dodge that way a 6th time. If your opponent's doing nothing but blocking, try to keep punching them while getting in close to keep them confident in what they're doing, then grab when you're close and they're least expecting it. A lot of players get comfortable with the same attack pattern once they're successful with it, so it's important to recognize patterns, then exploit the weaknesses in between. This is also why it's important to stay inconsistent with your own attacks, so that your opponent never figures out how to land a hit. Also important to keep in mind is to keep your arms charged at all times possible. You can charge many different ways, like holding down the dash button, landing a jump, and even just blocking. It's worth noting though that blocking is only going to give you a quick charge, with about half the time to punch compared to other methods. I personally like to couple a movement debilitating arm with a big damage type of arm. This way, your first punch is going to slow your opponent down and put them in a place for a big hit with a lot of damage. A lot of newer players think getting a bunch of grabs in is the way to go because it does the most damage technically, but in truth, a double hit with charged arms can do just as much, if not more damage, in a shorter amount of time and with less risk. Just like anything you do in life, it's important to have thought and purpose behind every punch you throw. You've only got a limited amount, so make sure you make the best of them. Don't stop moving. Like I mentioned in an earlier tip, some characters are meant to be tanky and slow, but that doesn't mean you should be purposely taking every attack to the face. I just talked a lot about staying unpredictable so your opponent can't read you, and moving around is the biggest factor in doing this. It's hard to get the hang of doing this while still throwing punches for newcomers, but this is another thing that really makes the difference between a novice and a pro. The Holy Trinity is definitely important, but the thing that trumps all the attacks in the Trinity is a good dodge. You can dodge every attack in this game, so make sure you take advantage of that. Once you're able to move around the stage fluidly and confidently with your chosen character, it's going to be a lot more natural and easy to focus on throwing your punches at exactly the right time. Use the stage. I feel like this tip always gets swept under the rug when people are discussing strategies in this game. Each stage has a different gimmick and setup, so play into these gimmicks. Having the higher ground can really set you up with a good advantage, and a lot of these stages allow you to get the higher ground, so why don't you just do it? The pillars and obstacles in a couple of these stages can allow for good dodges and jukes, so take advantage of them. Probably the most ineffective gimmick in all of these stages are the trampoline style objects in the crypt and, I'm spacing the name, but the Springman stage. They're kind of bad, but you could still use them to get an extra jump in and stay unpredictable. It's easy to forget about all these gimmicks the game sets up for us and just focus on the other player, but all of these objects are in the game for a reason. It's important to use every tool the game allows you, and players that do this generally have better luck overall. So I'm going to get real honest here. For the last few years, I didn't really play too many games due to the lack of fresh gameplay and originality in the current landscape. I've played far too many clones of the same type of action-adventure or competitive fighter and shooter games on the PlayStation 4, and this is the reason that the Switch, and more specifically ARMS, have drawn me in so much. There's no other competitive game like this in the current gamescape, which is one of the many reasons it's so fun to play. That being said, it is a fresh new concept, so it might take you a little longer to get the hang of it due to the fact that there wasn't really anything similar that you might have played prior. Getting to be the best at this game will require a lot of practice, but when you keep all these tips in mind while doing so, I guarantee you're going to have a lot more success. If there's any other useful tips I might have left out, let everyone know down in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel for the latest Switch content available. This is Max from Max Culture, and thank you so much for watching.